Hi, LinkedIn family, and welcome back to another Friday happy hour. I hope you all had a productive week like me. And because we all deserve a moment to celebrate our achievements, whether they're small or big, the moment is here live on With Locals for Teams LinkedIn event this Friday and every Friday at 5 p.m. Central European Time. The remote work setup has been challenging for all of us, but we managed to make the best out of it by staying connected, even if virtually, with our loved ones, family, friends, and colleagues. This is exactly why we started the happy hour ritual every Friday on LinkedIn to stay connected, inspire each other, and draw a smile on someone's faces after a long week of hard work. Now, for those of you who are joining us today for the first time, with Locals for Teams, we're offering virtual team activities and experiences tailored to keep employees connected, engaged, and productive. So, whether you aim to maintain your team's bond and connection, offer them ways to chill out and have fun, charging their energy and caring for their wellness, or simply keep on inspiring and motivating them, our experiences are here to meet all of your expectations. Now, today, I'm very excited because we have a special guest, and I mean a really special guest. She has her own unique style of addressing serious and critical employment issues in an engaging and very creative way. She's Tara Furiani, the founder and CEO of Not the HR Lady. Actually, we met Tara online and we were impressed by her no bullshit approach to anything related to a better workplace. Her mission is simple to create an ongoing dialogue and effect change related to previously thought of as taboo topics for the workplace, like bullying, racism, inequality, and many more. This is just a glimpse of Tara and her great contribution to make the workplace a better place. And I will give her now the stage so she can tell you more about herself and the ROI of people. So if you have any questions for Tara and would like to join the conversation, stick around till the end. You will get a chance to join the live stream in the last 10 minutes. So keep an eye out for a join the live stream button that is going to appear on the top right corner of your screen. So please click on it if you want to join and make sure your audio and video are switched on. Now, one last thing before we welcome Tara to the stage, I actually have a question for you guys. So, what is the best return you got out of investing in your people? A poll is going to show up on your screen. So, this is targeted to if we have HR managers in the audience, managers, team leads. What is the best return you got out of investing in your people? It could be enhancing productivity, retaining motivated employees, attracting more talents, or increasing engagement. We want to know, so let us know. But it's time to welcome Tara. So, hi, Tara, and welcome to the With Locals Happy Hour. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you, Carla? Thanks for having me.
I'm really good as well. And I want to say to the audience that I'm also very happy that I have a fellow Texan uh,
Yeah,
joining us. I think that's really, I'm really excited about that. I miss Texas. So, this is a little piece that I have in front of me.
I love it. Texas misses you. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm so happy to meet a fellow Texan. I love it.
So I want to start by asking you a little bit about yourself. When I was doing a little bit of research, I saw a lot of things on your resume. So I saw from executive, I saw influencer, I saw writer, speaker. But how did it started? And I also am curious on how the not HR lady name came up.
Well, I would love to tell you. So thank you for giving me the chance. Let me start there. Not the HR lady is actually something that happened to me during an introduction when I had joined an organization as the chief people officer, C-level, 8,000 person company. And I was introduced by my colleague, the chief operating officer, to a room full of about 300 people who had no idea who I was. They'd never had a chief people officer before. It was an opportunity to really, say this is a person who hired specifically to champion on behalf of our employees like you. And instead of doing that, instead of giving me any amount of anything,
Yeah.
he merely said, "This is Tara, the new HR lady."
Oh no.
And that's it. Like, he said no other words, not Tara's been a chief people officer and a chief executive for several years now with several large companies, like nothing. It was just
Yeah.
straight, dismissive. Like you would never introduce the chief financial officer as like the bean counting guy, or this is like our marketing dude, or whatever. You would give them that respect and that that title and the respect that they deserve for the position that they have. And I totally didn't get it. I was completely dismissed by this person. And it made the experience obviously a lot harder. And from that moment on, of course, you guys all know me by now. The first thing I said was, well, I am Tara Furiani, but I want to clear a few things up. I am not the HR lady. I am the chief people officer for your organization. And let me explain to you what that meant. And this is years ago. So when I had set out a year ago to create Not the HR Lady, this brand, that was that moment, that really kind of dismissive moment from a fellow colleague while in the C-suite, frankly shaped the name of the show and the name of the brand, and sort of I think really formed who I am and why I fight so tirelessly against, like you said, workplace bullshit, from misogyny to sexism to racism and all that. I've experienced a lot of it myself. I've watched a lot of it happen to people around me. Frankly, I've been complicit in some of this stuff happening in organizations, because you often get put in a weird position in HR. And so when I started Not the HR Lady with that in mind, I really wanted to go full bore into, the HR is not a 4-letter word, and I am not the HR lady. I am a strategic executive who can help you with your people strategy, much like you would choose a strategic financial executive or marketing executive or operations executive. My area of specialty just happens to be in the space of people. And so that's kind of the backstory of the show. But where I came from, I've spent 20 years in the world of work. For 12 of those years, I was the top HR executive for my organizations. I have been trained by some of the best, including Dale Carnegie, Predictive Index, Myers-Briggs. I have a bunch of degrees from different schools in organizational leadership and psychology. And I had no intention to set out into the world of people. What I did on my very first job was handed a binder and told that this is how I do it, and this is what the company is about, and this is how you do your job, and that's it. And I knew there was a better way. So I created one, and thus started my career into training, and then thus started my career into overall people management. And so that's a little bit about me. After 20 years, I left the corporate world of work and started Not the HR Lady right at the start of COVID. So real good timing. But it's been great. People want to talk about the stuff nobody talks about, especially now, because there is so much systemically wrong with the international worlds of work. Yeah. You're in the Netherlands. We have people in the UK, Africa, APAC, Australia, and everybody is saying the same thing. There is bullshit that's happening in the workplace, and we need to solve it. And that's what I'm all about. That's what my show's all about. And that's a little bit about the work I do now.
Well, I love it. I mean, this also can only be done by someone with an attitude and someone that is willing to be like, listen, this is not me. Like, I'm not your typical HR person, and that's not how you're going to address me. So I really admire that. When I told a colleague of mine, yeah, we're going to interview Tara, I was like, but this is not like, I don't know if you have watched The Office. I was like, this is not a Toby. I was like, forget a Toby. Yeah. So this is not a Toby. So this is gonna be fun, and I know that she has a lot to say. So yeah, that's how I was referring to you, which I hope you don't mind. But I mean, I think Toby is an example that is like, yeah, this topic or this position tends to fall into this like, oh, guidebook, and I need to follow these rules, and you are breaking them, and people are having this conversation. So I think that's really nice. So I want to go to the topic that that you mentioned, ROI, which is return of investment, right? So when I started also searching for it, I saw a lot of formulas and a lot of money and a lot of thing, and I was like, I didn't know that I was numbers, you know? But then you have this other approach that I want to ask you. So, what is return of investment, but now focusing on employees?
So that's a great question. Everything we do as an organization, as business leaders, as owners, as executives, we have an opportunity to set a budget around it, right? I mean, that's a fair assessment. We build marketing budgets, we build operations budgets. The one thing that has always struck me, and as somebody who's in the know, I've sat in budget meetings. I was a corporate executive for 12 years in those meetings with a seat at the table. And I can tell you wholeheartedly that every one of my experiences, the person who was asked to sacrifice the most was always my department. We don't need training. We don't need coaching. But what we do need is to fulfill our Cisco order so that we can feed the people who are coming to our restaurant, right? Like there's always this interesting balance of how do we run operations effectively with money and all that. And then the rest is just supposed to figure it out. And I think that's such a backwards approach. And every organization I've worked with and every organization I work with now, that's what I talk about is it's not necessarily qualifying, and it is, but it's not necessarily qualifying time to hire and turnover numbers and that. It is that. But it's so much more than that. And it starts with actually making a conscious investment in people. So you can't derive ROI if you are not consciously having a strategy and a budget around something you're trying to get ROI out of. And I think that's a really interesting paradigm shift that people are having right now is like, oh, wow, I really do need to think about what our DEI strategy looks like and who's going to lead that and what dollars it's going to take to do that. And then same thing with all the other people related buckets, right? So employee engagement, rewards and recognition, performance management, learning and development, recruitment, employment brand. There are so many different facets that make up your organization from a people perspective. And yet it's the thing we pay the least amount of attention to for most organizations. So you can never derive an ROI when it comes to you, Carla, but you can if you consciously think about, I am doing things to engage, invest in, and hopefully win Carla and retain her as my employee. And if I don't retain her because people do job hop, and that's okay. Yeah. I want her to tell people how amazing it was to work with locals when she leaves. I want her to give me positive word of mouth and refer friends. I want her to go learn some stuff elsewhere. And then I want her to come back even better than when I left her, right? So if companies are consciously thinking about how we do that and actually thinking about making an investment in something, similarly to how you would with your marketing strategy or your operational strategy or your IT strategy. If you thought about it, if organizations thought about it the same way, you can derive that ROI, that what is my return on giving Carla the opportunity to achieve a higher education and my partly pay for that? How am I able to achieve an ROI if I am giving Carla tools in order to, grow cross-departmentally so that she has exposure to other areas of the business and isn't just a one-trick accounting pony? She's expressed interest in HR, so I want to give her that. When I do all of those things, there are tangible results that come along with it. But the first part of it is recognizing that you have to be intentional and you have to have a strategy and you have to actually go about it like you would any other part of the business. Otherwise, it's moot. You can't derive an ROI unless you're intentional, just like you are with every other part of the organization.
Yeah. And I think we have a comment from Tom, which is watching from Denver. He says, the humans, people do the work for the organization. How the fuck is that not a straight line for ROI? But then I'm also thinking, as you're mentioning this, is this now a focus or has it been around? Or is this something that is more like generational? Because before this was not considered a topic.
Yeah, I think it's really generational. I think that there's, the way the world of work was set up to begin with, was very transactional in nature. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because we didn't have computers. We weren't tethered to devices. I couldn't check my email, 25 years ago at 5 o'clock when I left the office. That's it. I'm not getting emails, responding to anything. Sure, do I bring some paperwork home with me? Maybe, but more than likely, no, not on a normal day. I'm there from 8 to 5. Now it's completely different. Now we're completely tethered to our devices, our email. There's different, ways in which we're kind of always on and always working, where it wasn't like that years and years and years ago. It also used to be that you could create familial wealth and not have to work 3 jobs, or not have to, work a job to barely get by. Especially here in the U.S., there's a huge wage disparity problem. Between like the couple percent up here and everybody else, there's no middle class
Yeah.
anymore. So
Yeah.
the times have really shifted, I think, from a generational perspective. Now, I believe my generation, which is Gen X, kind of started the no bullshit, but we sort of also subscribed to it for a minute. Because if you think about the things we watched when we were younger, what, like the norms, who worked in the family, what work was like, and now the stuff shown on television and movies, all over the place. I think that my generation, those of us like maybe 35 to 45, really had an interesting time where technology became a thing right as we kind of entered the workforce. But yet before all of that, it wasn't like that at all. And it was very this nuclear family of, 2.5 kids, and the dad works and the mom stays home.
Yeah.
But then we're kind of going like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. And then the next generation, the millennials, really kind of went, hold on a minute. You want me to come into an office to sit on a computer to do work? No, thank you. I'm going to work at home, and that's just going to be the way it is. So I think absolutely generational. And now we're in a place where people are just talking about it more and more. Like, I don't need you. And I say that knowing how huge unemployment is right now. But people also don't want to take jobs and work for fucks. That's the bottom line. They don't want to work for people who are doing the wrong things, who are not invested the way that they want them to be, who are not recognizing and cognizant of the fact that I bring something to you just as much as you bring something to me. It's a two-way street. And that's changing from an interview perspective, from a engagement perspective. I really see a big shift happening. But my long-winded answer is I think it's 100% generational. And now I think the generation is like, yeah, we're cool. We're done with this bullshit. We're going to try over again and see what we can do to create a better place for all of us.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. I mean, I also find myself, I'm going to be 32 this year. I found myself in this transitional period of like technology to non-technology. And I also, having parents, a dad that is traditional, and being like, hey, like this is how work should be. And then I see like this other word and I'm like, wait a second, like which one is it? And now there's people like you that are like raising the voice and being like, no, 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 no. This is not how it should be. So companies are also kind of adapting in that sense. So for me, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's a wave right now. And it's
Absolutely.
changing, and it's changing. It's like for the younger generation, they're gonna get it, which is really nice. For others, we are working on it. So it's part of the movement, which I'm also glad to do. But I want to read you some comments that we have right now from the audience. So we have Steph saying like companies should treat their employees better than their customers, or equal to a minimum. The topic, it was taboo before, as we were saying, and Tom saying employees the first customer, they choose to come in daily, spend time away from family to serve your organization, take care of those that take care of your customer, and then Steph saying 100%. So now that we have disclosed this topic and we have said like what is not working, how can we work on it? What are the things that companies can do to invest in their employees?
A start. Like, it sounds so basic, but it's true. Really just start. If you don't know and you don't have anybody capable of helping you build a strategy, there are tons of people and resources and things out there for you to investigate. Start investigating it. Start figuring out like, wow, we haven't really done a good job. Great. Do you have somebody in charge of HR? Is that you have a people person? If you don't have a head of people, you need to start there. That's an important key factor in ensuring that you have a solid people strategy to begin with. Before you can even start to think about ROI, do you even have anything? And I think that that's a real, I know it sounds basic, but that's a real world example of what companies are going through right now, which is, what is this thing? What is
Yeah.
people strategy? Why do I need a head of people? Right now, our HR person, our HR lady reports to the CFO, right? Doesn't even report to the CEO, maybe in some instances. There isn't somebody at chief level. There isn't somebody who's like going, hey, I have a really great idea. I've built this whole program. We're going to do this sustainability. Like, if there's nobody there in your organization coming to you with things,
Yeah.
start with finding someone to come to your organization to help you figure out these things. Your strategic partner in business from a people perspective should be able to both understand the nuance and navigate the people realm while also understanding the impact to the business. Those are two key components that have been missing out of HR for so very long, which
Yeah.
is HR has been a box checker, right? They need to make sure we have benefits, make sure that, if we're getting sued, we have all the right backup, do severances, do unemployment, do payroll, manage the HR system, fire people.
Yeah.
That's like how HR is seen by most companies. And frankly, you're right. Those are all things that HR can help with. Now put those aside and imagine what else we could help with if you think about us not so much as checkers of boxes and doers of those things, but rather, how does the business and its people intersect in a way that's going to create the kind of environment you want? I think you said that Stephanie said treating employees and customers the same. In a lot of companies, your employees are your customers. So if you're treating them like shit, imagine that they're not probably going to then
Yeah.
use you as a service. And that's not always the case, but it's certainly some of the case. And it's not that hard. If you're spending all this money and all this time to try to figure out your customer base, right? Your marketing strategy, lead generation, all the things that are going to help your company succeed. And you're spending all the money on that. And you're not also at the same time spending at least an equal amount of money, maybe a little less, on your employee base for the same reasons, to increase like visibility and interest and word of mouth and loyalty. It's the same, it's just opposite. So my advice to companies, how do you do it? You literally just start.
Yeah.
Evaluate if you even have a people strategy. If you don't have a people budget, you don't have a people strategy. So start there. If you have a people budget and you don't have a people strategy written out like a business plan, like you do probably for other areas of the business, start there. If you're past all of that and none of it is working, throw it all away and start over and bring somebody in if you need to help you get to the place you need to get. No one can solve for an ROI of people if you don't have the basics down. And the fact of the matter is, so many companies don't. And you need to. It has to be invested in the same way that you would invest in other facets of the business, operations, customer marketing. Any of those pieces of the puzzle should be viewed and acknowledged and planned for similarly when thinking about people.
Yeah, that's right. And I think education is key. Like whether it's work or life, I mean, education is key. And I think this is also related. We have had topics like DEI. I mean, everything starts with education and educating yourself. And also, I mean, this is also beneficial for your own personal development and work development. So now, talking about this, I have a question because does companies investing in people, does it always have to be related with money? Is there, I mean, we have companies that are like either small or big, but they're always going to be looking for reasons to say, like, no, we cannot do that because there's no money. I mean, do you have any suggestions? I know that Rajesh has a suggestion. He says, like, you can have a site for honest, unbiased reviews on the internet, which I'm pretty sure that doesn't cost you any money. But then what do you think, Tara?
There's so many things that companies need to think about. And I really don't want to hear the excuse of we don't have money for that. Because if you have money to do travel and entertainment, if you have money to send your executives on nonsensical conferences overseas, if you have money to have a room full of fucking kombucha for your employees that they don't want, you have money to invest in your people. But that said, I do know that there are organizations who are struggling, especially in light of the pandemic, who are maybe just getting back on their feet. Even if they got PPP loans, those were very small in nature for most people. And there are a lot of caveats to that. So, I want to, at least here in the US, sorry, PPP loans here in the US. I think with organizations coming back and really starting to take a stance, money could be a factor. And how you do it is really genuine care. What does your leadership team look like? Maybe you can't roll out huge, robust programs for everybody. Start at the top. And
Yeah.
I know that might sound counterintuitive, like, wow, but we should be investing in our people, and our people aren't the executives. That's true. But your executives are more than likely the problem. If you have a shitty culture, your employees aren't engaged, you're not invested in people strategy, you haven't really done any of the work, more than likely it's at the top that needs help. So I would start there, but better, I would say, please, if you have money to spend on dinners, if you have
Yeah.
money to spend on gifts, if you have money on conferences and other things that are just extravagant, you absolutely have money to spend on your people. It's choosing to allocate it differently. It's like when people say they don't have any time, right? I have 7 kids, like 7 of them, 7 children. I have the same amount of time as you. I just prioritize my day because I know that there are certain obstacles that are going to be in my way. I fail a lot of the time, and that's fine. But I do a very solid job of at least trying to block out what I think is going to make sense. And that's what organizations need to be doing when it comes to allocating funds. You don't need to spend $100,000 on one Super Bowl ad, probably. What you
Yeah.
need to do is that $100,000, or sorry, $100 million or $1 million, or whatever the number is. Let's go $1 million. Take that $1 million, buy a shorter Super Bowl ad, and take the other 500,000 and reinvest that in your people. If you're willing to spend the money to attract clients, who the fuck do you think is doing the work for those clients?
Exactly.
Hello.
Yeah. No, it makes complete sense. And I think this is also like an amazing segue to your book, which I think, I mean, I love the title, first of all. It's Fuck Your Office Snacks. So for everybody that wants to look for it, I mean, yeah, you talk about those meaningless perks that the companies usually brag about. And it's again like this budgeting issues that maybe they can put in something else, right? But then at the same time, they brag about these things and they mistreat their employees or they neglect their needs. What can you tell us about this? And I also want to tell you, Tara, that you have a big crowd on the live stream, and there's some people really leaving some nice comments, and this conversation is doing really great. So we're doing a
Hey,
really good job here.
I love it. That's so fun. Well, thank you. I'm excited about the book coming out. It's coming out in 3 weeks. You guys are actually sponsoring the episode I think that it's coming out on, which is really exciting. And this is a topic near and dear to my heart because there's such a fundamental shift that happened. And I talk about this at the early part of the book in the very beginning, which is, companies actually used to care from a financial perspective, at least
Yeah.
seemingly. I don't know about in all countries, but in the US specifically, there used to be pensions. And this went away in favor of more financially beneficial to the employer 401ks. And this happened in the late 80s and it really took off in the 90s. And then companies realized that you could just dangle a mimosa in front of people and allow a 4 o'clock beer. And suddenly that is what everybody is looking for. And that's going to make me want to come to your company. And that's what people started throwing in job descriptions. The craziest thing is we all fell for it. And that's, a bummer on all of our parts because what we did was fuck ourselves out of the middle class and put ourselves squarely in, the lower class. Now there's no middle class, right? We've traded perks in a lot of instances for cash. I know, for example, there's a very large online retailer whose name might sound like Schmamazon, who does, pays at incredibly lower wages. And a lot
Yeah.
of the things that they sell as being an employee there, especially at the corporate level, is all of the various perks that they offer and all of the various stock options and RSUs and different things. And so many employees just don't understand that that's not a good deal to you unless you meet so many, bits of criteria. And I really want to ask a question to the audience is if you work in one of those places that have mega campuses, or a part of the reason you took your job was you saw like all the cool stuff and the slides and the free food and the on-site chef and the kombucha you don't have to pay for and like all of that. How has that worked out for you in the last year of COVID?
It's a red flag.
I mean, nobody like you aren't in your mega campuses. So that chef you traded your $10,000 salary
Yeah.
for, we're not cooking you food because you're not there. You're in your house, stuck inside like all of us, like for a year, you know? And to me, thinking about your financial wellness, thinking about how you're going as an individual, um, how you're going to retire someday, how you're going to pay and generate wealth for your children. How are you going to put money aside if we keep trading, you know, stuff for fulfillment and purpose and more cash and you know, understanding what we bring to the table and sharing that with organizations in a way that's like, no, you need me too, and this is what
Yeah.
I'm worth. Like all of the things are just that. They're ancillary things and they're great. I'm not somebody who's against this holistically. What I am against is companies doing it in lieu of not paying properly. And a lot of organizations have done that. They've used shiny objects to pay people less, to give people less um, you know, financial security
Yeah.
because it benefits them. They get a tax write-off for this kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I want companies to still do it. Just don't do it at the expense of not paying your people adequately or investing in some kind of retirement program for them. People would rather have a 401k match if only they understood what that meant to them
That's true.
rather than kombucha. And that, to your point, you said education earlier is just so fundamental, and it is. And that's for us to know as well. It's a disservice, again, here in the US, at least specifically, we don't teach financial literacy. We don't teach
No.
401k. We don't teach paying taxes. You know, my son thinks he's going to move out here in a couple of years. And I'm like, you make $12.50 an hour working at Cane's. Your checks are 100 something bucks. He adds it up and thinks he can get an apartment because he doesn't understand taxes. But good news, I'm teaching him that. Our systems didn't teach us any of that. And companies know that. And I'm not saying companies are being exploitative on purpose all the time. That's not the case. But they definitely take advantage of the fact that you don't know what a 401k is or why. You should want to do the match. It's free money, right?
Yeah.
And that is just something that strikes me so hard, being in the seats at the table, having a seat at the table and being in the room where those decisions are made and hearing firsthand leaders and CEOs say exactly what I just said. You
Yeah.
know, they don't even understand what 401k is. So let's throw a 6% match. We only have 4% participation. So like, it's a really interesting like place to be, right? Where I know from being in the room that is absolutely intentional a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I'm calling on you guys to do better. Like instead of fucking over your people by hoping they don't participate, spend less money on stuff that doesn't matter and give them education on why they should participate in the 401k. Help people become better people. That's how you gain market share. That's how you win ultimately. And definitely that's how you increase your word of mouth from an employer perspective. People talk loudly, especially now. And not having, again, a solid people strategy that includes fair wages, you know, that only includes tax write-offs for you in the form of snacks and travel and entertainment, all that stuff. We don't want that anymore. You're right. Fuck your office snacks. We want to be treated like human beings. We want to be respected in the workplace. We want to do a good job with good people. We want to have a purpose and we want to be financially rewarded appropriately for that.
No, yeah, it makes complete sense. And I think we need people to call them out. And Tara, here you are. But and that's also something, you know, like when they told me about you, my colleague mentioned, like, do you know what workfish is? And I'm like, I have no idea. So then I was like, okay, work fishing. I started looking, and then, yeah, your name came up. So you
Love
made up. Yeah, so everybody know Tara came up with this term. Now,
it.
when I started reading, like when I saw yeah, the talk show, I was like, wait a second. Have I been like workfish before? And then I remember like all this job applications that are like so inviting, all shiny, like, yeah, this is the best place to work. And then they have like this red flags, as we mentioned before. And then I started thinking, I was like, okay, maybe I have. And then, like, an example that came to me, and then you tell me if I'm correct to assume that is work fishing, is like, for example, this: forget about the 9 to 5 work mentality, be ready to be flexible. I mean, that's asking you on like brackets that you're gonna work extra hours, right? And don't expect to get compensated.
That's exactly what it is. But at least they're telling you. So like that's not work fishing so much
Okay.
as it is. I mean, it is for sure. It is because you have to read between the lines, but they make it pretty obvious that,
Yeah.
that that's the case. Better like work fishing to me would be more like, hey, you're only gonna work 9 to 5. And
Oh,
then you get there and you're like, that's cute. So we meant what you're gonna be doing is working 9 to 5 for sure and probably more like 7 to 8.
yeah.
So like 12 hours. Like that is like more like work fishing. But like I appreciate the honesty. Like forget 9 to 5. We want you all the time. If
Yeah.
if that's the reality, right? There are people who are into that. And all I'm saying is like stop painting yourself into a beautiful picture of harmony and love only to show up to see bullying and violence and just rampant racism. I mean, you can't hide that stuff. And the fact that companies think that you can is cute. But better, we're on to you. And if you could just stop doing that, like you don't have to be perfect. And
Mhm.
companies, especially right now, are in a place where they have so much to do, especially in the space of people, and it can be overwhelming for them too. They maybe hadn't intended to be fucks this whole time, but now they realize they have, and there's that shift. I think for us, giving them a little bit of grace, giving organizations a little bit of grace, but better companies tell us that you're new to your DEI journey. Tell us that you have not prioritized people. We will value your honesty and transparency, and maybe be more interested in coming to help you along the way. It doesn't have to be sunshine and roses. That's not realistic for most
Mhm.
companies anyway. You don't have to give us all your dirty laundry, but definitely don't paint a picture that is actually not representative of your workforce. If you talk about all of your diversity and you have representation and all of that is in your stuff, and I get on a Zoom with 8 white people, I call bullshit, and I'm going to call bullshit during that interview, and I hope that everybody will. Like, this is what you mean by diversity? It's 8 white people. Are you
Yeah.
crazy? Again, you don't have to be perfect, and you may still have 8 white people at the table. Okay, we get it. We're not asking you to fire anybody to replace them with somebody who's in a marginalized group. That's not what anybody is talking about. Unless they're an asshole. If they're an asshole, you should definitely fire them and replace them with a non-asshole.
Yeah.
But other than that, nobody's asking for that. We realize there's a journey. Be
Mhm.
transparent with your journey. We're all on one. Everybody's on a journey right now. And companies, especially, should be very focused on theirs, but better be transparent about it. We don't need just a press release talking about all the things that you've done and da 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 da. We want to see action. We want to know that you get that you're not perfect and that you're working on it. We want to have those conversations, and
Yeah.
we don't show up expecting one thing and having something else completely happen, thus work fishing. Nobody wants to be work fished. Nobody wants to be catfished, right? Like
Yeah.
everybody knows the term from a dating perspective.
Yeah.
You don't want to show up expecting to meet the person of your dreams only to find a 200-year-old person who's typing in their mom's basement, who doesn't look anything like or act anything like or isn't
Yeah.
the person. We don't want companies like that either. We want companies who are not going to work fish us, not going to sell us on a lie. We just want honesty, transparency. Let us decide if that's the right environment for us or not.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense. And I'm seeing a comment right now from Steph that she says, I feel like every company I've ever worked for has workfished me. Reality was always so different than what was presented in interviews. But then she also says that I don't think I asked the right questions. And then you learn that afterwards, like by showing, yeah, I mean, cracks always show at some point. But I think also from my perspective, like I understand that, yeah, at the moment of the interview or when you're in need of a job, you're just really like, okay, this is it. But I think also not the companies, but also the people that are gonna work there, we need to understand our value and also to start asking those questions and don't be shy about them because it's important. I mean, like you said at the beginning, it's a two-way street in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It is a complete two-way street. I think asking questions is important for sure. But it's also prudent that the recruiter or the hiring manager, or the person you're talking to, answer them honestly.
Yeah.
If I ask a person about what's your stance on Black Lives Matter, and you tell me that the organization is committed to, uplifting Black voices and reevaluating and reassessing pay disparity. And you go through all the motions, and I get there, and that is not the case.
Yeah.
Like, you could have just said, we're really early in our journey. Obviously, it's important to us. We believe that Black Lives Matter. And we're committed to ensuring a safe workplace for our employees. But to be honest with you, we're new into the journey.
Yeah.
That would be so much better than some fluffy
Appreciated.
BS.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
appreciated. So
treat me
I
like a grown,
think,
like I can handle it. Like I can
yeah.
handle the information because I can. I'm a grown up, just like you,
Mhm.
and you have the right and responsibility, right, to have an open dialogue with me. We're talking about a place I'm going to spend a ton of my time. We're talking about a place that I'm going to earn a living and provide for my family at. The
Mhm.
least you can do is not lie to me.
Yeah, that's very true. And you know what? We've been having this really nice conversation, so we're almost like we have like 20 minutes, but I think this is the right time to ask. We've had a very active audience, so if somebody wants to join us right now, there's going to be a button showing up, so you guys can join us here. If you have a question for Tara, you can do it one-on-one. You've been saying quite some comments also in the chat, so why not do it here? We're open. We would love to have you here, right, Tara?
I would love it. I don't know who's all on because I can't see anybody or any of
Well,
the
we
chat
have,
for.
let's see if you, yeah, I mean, right now it's just names, but we have Tom, we have Cesar, we have Rajesh, we have
Come
Alex,
on, jump in.
Steph. So we have many people there that can join.
Love
So
it.
please do so. Uh, in the meantime, I mean, we mentioned before also that this is a generational thing, right? But do you think that this was also trigger, like this change was triggered because of COVID? I mean, this need now that
Oh
people
yeah.
went back to working not at the office and then they realize, wait, I'm not getting all the perks like you said, and what is it that I'm getting now?
I think that COVID has definitely shifted the workforce entirely. The folks who used to say, "Well, we're just not a work at home company," or "That doesn't work for us." Well, I guess it had to, right? Or you went out of business because there really wasn't a lot of options when COVID started for people. So, for I think for companies, there's a really interesting place to let go of some of that control, which
Mhm.
is the reason for needing to have people there so you could physically see them. That's just a control function, something you've been doing. Companies have realized that's a thing. And I think for employees, they've realized, wow, I think twofold. One, I really miss being in the office. And two, I really, really thrive when I'm working in a team environment. For other people, I think it's afforded them the opportunity to have more flexibility and be able to work in places that they otherwise wouldn't have. I have a friend, Kelly Hartman, who's the chief wellness officer at Flywire, who lived in the UK at the start of COVID. But with all the London restrictions, she's bounced around. And I
Mhm.
think she's in Dominica right now. She's been to like Greece, like everywhere, working remotely because that's what it's afforded her. COVID has afforded her that. And as the wellness officer there, she's getting to have all of these really interesting and robust experiences and different cultures and things to bring back to her organization. And they're doing a lot of that, which there's so much opportunity, I think, if we just let it happen,
Yeah.
stop restricting people in ways that don't matter, solve for the outcome rather than solving for everybody physically being together, because that might not be necessary. And I
Mhm.
think COVID's really done a lot of good from that perspective. The other thing I think it's done is really increased visibility and awareness related to so many of the social issues that plague the worlds of work. Maybe because we're all sitting in front of our computers 24/7, maybe because, we're hearing and have access to information differently because we're in our homes, because the workplace isn't so busy with travel and events and parties and whatever's, that we're, much more aware of our fellow man, and and really just having this opportunity to go, wow, things kind of are fucked up, huh? And being able to deep dive. So many people have lost their jobs. So many people have, we George Floyd's murder trial is happening right now in the US. I mean, there's just been so many things that have happened that I think have fundamentally shifted the world of work forever.
Definitely. No, I 100% agree. I mean, things are, yeah, we saw a very big shift, like with the whole start and then throughout. And then I don't know if this is the end of the tunnel, but somehow in the US, like things are going back to normal. But I mean, is it at the end going to be back to normal? We don't know. But I think we do want to encourage companies and to just not go for a not so linear approach to these things. I mean, it's time for a change. Everybody's open. As we said, education, everything is, we have everything at our disposition. So I think, yeah, I've asked all my questions. We've seen everything. Well, we can talk more, of course, but the time is running out. So I just want to give you a chance, Tara, to share with the audience where they can find you, your future projects, about the Not HR Lady channel. So please let us know everything about you.
Love it. Sounds good. And I love this. I am not surprised that everybody is like super shy and not wanting to get on camera, because I didn't tell anybody that was an option. So thank you for everybody that came. Thank you at Locals for Teams for having me. Carla, thank you for facilitating such a great conversation. I am loving this. You can find me at notthehrlady.com. From there, you can connect with me. I'm everywhere: social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And then join us live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time in the US, which is really grossly late in the Netherlands. I think it's 1 a.m. your time, but it's worth it. Sharif, Huda, and the with Locals for Teams join us regularly.
Yeah.
So I would love to have as many people come as possible. It's so much fun. So please join us on Thursdays at 7 o'clock and connect with me. Again, I'm everywhere, and the best place to find me in general is notthehrlady.com. And from there, you can find everything else out.
Perfect. I also had a really good time and an amazing conversation. As I told you before, I was like, okay, I prepare. I was a little nervous, but this was really great. So I really appreciate it, Tara. Thank you so much. So you guys already know where you can find her. You will see you again next Thursday in the Not the HR Lady new episode and after party. So thank you all for joining us today. We're always here at the same place at the same time every Friday at 5 p.m. Central European Time. Sometimes we travel around the world, sometimes we cook and drink together, and other times we invite experts and talented hosts to teach us a new skill. In April, we have a variety of dancing workshops, meditation, and city tours, so make sure you follow With Locals' LinkedIn page to be notified about Friday happy hours. Next week, Felipe is joining us from Barcelona to teach us the art of flamenco, so if you're into Spanish traditional dance, click on the link in the chat to register. But until next time, guys, enjoy your weekend and have a happy hour and a happy time. See ya! Bye bye!